Rob Bridges.
Good morning.
You look wonderful.
Why, thank you. Great to see you.
I miss you.
I miss you too.
You went to Luxembourg.
I did. I joined Altisource Portfolio Solutions, NASDAQ traded company.
Largest servicer of real estate in the world.
Yeah, just made Fortune 100's fastest growing companies.
Wow.
And it's very exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
But the amazing thing is, you know, every company says go global, go international, but nobody expects that you just pack your shorts and go in the morning, and you did.
I did. I loaded up my whole house, my dog, and off we moved to the beautiful country of Luxembourg.
And how long to make that decision? How long did it take you?
It was something that I had to think really hard about. I've got family here, obviously, that I didn't want to leave, lots of friends. I enjoyed the position that I was in before.
Right.
So it wasn't, it took a lot of serious thinking. And then finally I decided I'm up for an adventure and for something that could be a great challenge. And so I took the plunge, and I'm not regretting it.
So for the geographically challenged like myself, where is Luxembourg?
Luxembourg's in Western Europe.
Sorry to all of Luxembourg.
Yeah, I know, right? No, it's a small country, very proud country, great people. But it's actually located between Belgium, Germany, and then bordered by France on the south side. So it's
about the size of what?
Oh, it's very small.
Like Oklahoma?
Oh no, much smaller than Oklahoma. It takes an hour to drive north to south and 35 minutes to drive east to west.
Wow. What language did you have to learn to speak?
I unfortunately have not learned to speak all their languages. So when they have Luxembourgish, which is a
Luxembourgish,
which is kind of a
sounds
German,
like a
French
dish.
Mix. Yeah, I know. It's so good.
Luxembourgish.
And then they learn French, and then they learn German, and then they learn English. So when you come out of high school there, you've already got 4 languages.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and then you're learning, Flemish and different languages that are around there. So they're highly educated, and the great thing is one of those languages is English. So if they're from Luxembourg, you can get around pretty well.
So I know that when you were in the States, you loved art galleries and you loved weekend events. And what do you do in Luxembourg?
Exactly the same. It's great. They've got terrific art and terrific history. And in the United States, we look at history and we say, wow, this is 200 years old. And there you've got, 3,000 years of history. Wow. And even the city itself is its own museum. It's, has the Roman walls that were built around the city, and Notre Dame that competes with the one in Paris. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful landscape for Altisource. And, of course, it's very professional there. It's a lot of banks. I think there's 189 banks that are actually
189 banks in Luxembourg?
They're actually in
Why?
Luxembourg. It's a very, professional marketplace. Obviously, you've got the connections with the EU Central Bank. You've got the EU Congress or Parliament that meets there and shares between there and Brussels. And just a really good workforce.
Wow.
Highly educated banking, accounting, finance, legal workforce.
What a great opportunity and what a great thing that you're involved in. Now tell me, Altisource, you told me at one point, is very, very global. They bought companies all over the world.
That's correct. So, to give you a history lesson, I guess, and I'm probably not the best at this, but Ocwen, which was a large bank in the United States, had Altisource had service providers that would provide service for it as a bank, and everything from property preservation, inspections, valuations, title services, and they wound up taking those service companies and spinning those out as Altisource. And so Altisource started off, really a short time ago, 3 years ago.
Right.
And since then, it has just decided that, and has kind of worked toward the goal of providing all of the services that you would need from inception through REO disposition.
Right.
So if you're a bank, mortgage, financial institution, even government agencies that deals in real estate or mortgages, we can provide all the services that you're going to need cradle to grave on a property or a loan.
But you provide them from very strange places. Like your property preservation is in Uruguay?
We do. Our CEO and our chairman are very visionary people who looked at the globe and said, where can we find the best talent pools and be able to provide efficient services to our clients? And so we are located in Mumbai. We're located in Bangalore, both in India. We're located in the Philippines. We also have offices in Uruguay. And then throughout the United States, Boston, Atlanta, Houston, St. Louis, West Palm Beach, etc.
So what are the cultural challenges of you're sitting in Luxembourg, you're an American, you've got a trustee for your foreclosure sale in India,
Right.
you've got a property pres company in Uruguay, you've got I mean, how do you conduct business?
It's really interesting. Obviously, we have great communication systems, and there's some great advantages to it. I'll tell you the advantages first, and then the disadvantages, right? So the advantage is I can get a 24-hour work cycle, right? So if I've got a project that's working, India can start the project off. Europe can continue it through the afternoon hours. The U.S. can pick it up in the carrying on through there. Uruguay can pick it up from there. Philippines can then pick it up, and then back to India, and you get a 24-hour work cycle.
Provided you never take a nap.
You're right, exactly. I don't want to be up 24 hours, so everybody else can, kind of kick in on the work, so to speak. The drawback is because obviously there's cultural differences between the different countries. There's language barriers between the different countries. And some cultures are very good at certain things, and some cultures aren't that good at thinking out of the box or whatever that is.
So now I know you're really politically correct, but I got to break you down. So, so take a country. Let's take India, because we all talk about phone service in India and having to talk to India in the middle of the night.
Right.
Yet you have a very fine company in India, but they must look at things completely differently than you do, or your other companies do. And so how does that tactically work out? I mean, is it always just flow and everybody does their thing? Or?
Yeah, our employees in India tend to be, extremely process oriented, and which is great. They can, give you a schematic or a process plan on anything and follow it to the T and never make a mistake, and have, the best Six Sigma program that you can find. Sometimes you run into challenges that if there's a flaw in the process and there's an issue that comes up in the middle, you don't get a lot of the, okay, I feel empowered to make decisions and take it forward. I'm just going to stop right here because I don't know what to do past this. And so, we find that, I think, more that ingenuitive thinking and more that kind of go-getters and make decisions, and even if it's a wrong decision, own your decision and go forward with it. With people in Europe, people in the United States tend to be more, feel more empowered to do that. But some cultures just don't feel that. I think that empowerment. And
so companies that succeed, would you say, then go in and understand the culture and embed people?
Well, embed people, but also embrace it. And you utilize people for what they're terrific for. And so, for India, we utilize both Bangalore and Mumbai for customer service calls. We utilize them for IT development. We utilize them for process improvement and process, systems and integrations, and they're spectacular at that. And then we, of course, embed people from the United States and Europe within their system, within their organization, and in their locations. And then we also embed people from the Philippines, India, Uruguay, in Europe and in the United States with our staff.
That's
so that
great.
We get kind of the whole, for lack of a better word, the whole world of different types of cultures, different types of personalities, and different type of people that can work in a melting pot to all really deliver that diversity and that great product for our clients.
So do you travel personally to different countries to check in on how it's going?
I have not yet, but I believe in 2014 I will be both in India and the Philippines for different training things. And obviously compliance is just a huge issue for Altisource and most banks now with the CFPB and everything else. So we're obviously really doubling our efforts on compliance, making sure that our people are well trained and can keep 100% compliant operations and make our clients look good.
And so what's your strategy, the Altisource strategy going forward? Do you buy all these companies in order to later sell them, or to combine companies and expertise? What's the strategy for Altisource?
I think really, that's really probably a better question for our CEO or chairman. But from what I see in what we're doing, we're really just acquiring all of those service channels that you will need. And so even with ourselves, when we see that we're doing something that, for example, billing, and we think, gosh, we're doing a lot of billing, and we're using third-party providers to do this billing, why don't we just build that or buy a company that does that and integrate that into our system? And so that's what many of our acquisitions have been. Also, some of our acquisitions have been strategic to deal with everything from competition to increasing the project or increasing the property flow into our system, increasing the loan packages into our system. We work with both Aquin Bank and other partners to acquire loan portfolios so that we have more volume into our servicing platforms and into our our disposition strategies.
So let's talk about foreclosure.
Great.
Because we got the investors listening and they want to know, hey, the Courthouse Steps, how do I get those properties?
Yeah.
Now, how many properties do you guys have across your company in general? I mean, you buy and sell all the time. What's your inventory like?
Right now I think there's roughly about 8,000 or 9,000 properties within our system, but we also have $450 billion in loans that we're servicing. So every day you're going to get REOs and you're going to have foreclosures. I think back in the 80s the foreclosure rate was fairly small, 90s same, and then 2005 we obviously had the beginning of the foreclosure crisis, which we've all experienced and lived through now. And we had volumes that were extremely high, and in fact I think Zillow and some others are reporting that excuse me, it was the numbers were upwards of 2% of the properties in the United States were going through foreclosure each year, and so that's a really high number. And I don't necessarily know what that means, what that translates into a number for us on a daily basis for foreclosure auctions, because they're quite different. There's only 16 states that actually do foreclosure auctions. Some do non-judicial, some judicial. It's an interesting history of that.
Yeah, so you're starting now to sell foreclosed properties on the Courthouse Steps.
That's correct. First time. We've never done this before.
Why now? Why?
Well, I think we see a need. We know that REO is not always going to be at the volumes that it is now, correct? Right? So I think most people would agree with that and hope for that. But at the same time, there's always going to be people who default. And banks do not want to be in the real estate business. They don't want to own and manage real estate. It's an expensive task. And if you're spending 15% per year of the property value holding that asset, then you're just digging a hole even worse, right? So if we can go through the foreclosure process and actually find a third-party purchaser at the foreclosure auction, we never have to take that property into inventory. We don't have to clean it up. We don't have to repaint it. We don't have to pay the taxes. We don't have to pay the insurance. We can actually liquidate that asset and liquidate the liability right away.
So speaking of that, what % of your properties would you say actually will sell on the Courthouse Steps?
That's a great question. I think when we've modeled it, we've looked at our possibilities or our thoughts are that we could have as many as 500 to 900 properties per month that could sell on the Courthouse Steps. And our hope is that, at least what we're hoping for in industry standards is a 65 to 80% success rate, where 65 to 80% of the properties that we actually do this program and sell them on the Courthouse Steps go to third parties, right? So, there will be properties that may not hit, that may not be able to be sold on the Courthouse Steps to third parties for whatever reason, whether it be that there's a premium mortgage insurance carrier that says you have to get this much, or maybe there's a HUD or government agency that says you have to get this much, you have to hit this level, some number that's not based on the actual value of the property, that's more along the lines of based on the past debt on the property.
Well, I know when HUD sells their properties, they use a Driveby BPO, I guess, and then they give it a haircut.
That's correct. HUD has a great program, the CWCOT program, where they literally do a national platform of, if the property is in this area, we'll give it a 12% discount. If the property is in this area, we'll give it a 20% discount to really get those prices down to encourage third-party buyers to go and pick
And
those
so
up.
Altisource is looking at programs so that investors can be more successful when they show up to buy. That doesn't just say, oh, we've got to have the whole unpaid balance, but they're looking at some haircut.
Exactly. And I think a lot of investors, and if you've been to one of these sales, and in fact, I know you've been to one of those sales, the crowds are amazing, right? And there are investors that are making great deals and picking up a lot of property and making great businesses. That's not just the shows you see on A&E with the going around and bidding at auctions and picking them up, but people are making a great business living out of it.
Yeah, I think the thing that works for investors, unlike homeowners or individual buyers, they have no passion in it, emotional aspect. They look at it and they've got a spreadsheet, they know what they're going to pay, and if it isn't that, then they're going to go down the road and buy something else. And when they come, I noticed when we went to one of those sales and you saw 400, 500 buyers standing, ready to buy, that if they can't get it, if it's all going to go back to the seller, to the bank, to the mortgage servicer, whoever that is, they go, I'm on to the next sale. Yeah. And so I think what Altisource is doing and what others are doing, making it a little easier for them to win some, keeps the investor, and they're watching now, they know that keeps them interested, right?
Right.
Why get dressed and show up if nobody's going to sell me anything,
Yeah.
right?
Well, not only that, but we also want to make the process, and through utilizing partners and things, to make the process so that if you're not an investor right now,
Right.
but you'd like to look into this business and get into it, we're going to make it easy for you. We're going to give you contracts that you can understand. We're going to make a process that you can come down there and compete that day for that property if you'd like to be the buyer.
Well, that's a very good point, because in talking to Elsa Lewis, we're talking to new investors, and everybody says, oh, if you read the blog, stay out of it if you don't know what you're doing, and
Right.
you've got to be careful, and there's people living in it, and they aren't going to leave, and la la la. Well, all those savvy investors were at one time new investors.
Exactly.
And so somewhere along the line, you have to learn. So
Everybody cut their teeth on their first property.
that's exactly right.
And you can too.
That's right. So you're a long-distance dad.
I am. That was one of the hardest pieces about deciding to move to Luxembourg, joining Altisource, was that I have two little girls here in Tulsa.
Yeah.
And so I thought, they're 3 and 5, but I thought if there was any time to do this, it would be now, because I think that they're going to need me more at 7 and 9 than they will at 3 and 5.
Yeah.
They're very much their mother's kids right now.
Yeah.
So, it was a tough decision. So the way we keep in touch is we just Skype, quite a bit.
But
So,
you told me a really cool story. Now, one is 3, age 3.
yeah, age 3.
And so you Skype with her every morning.
Yeah.
And so you came home.
I was going to surprise her. I was
For
came in
for Dad's
Day at the preschool and was going to pop in there and surprise her. And I flew in, of course, a couple nights before, and I'm Skyping with her from my hotel room that morning, so she doesn't realize anything's amiss. And then I show up at her school, and she says, "Daddy, I knew you were coming." And I'm like, "How did you know I was coming?" She's like, "Well, when you Skyped with me this morning, you weren't in your office." Because usually at the office.
You
and
see,
so that astute,
women
at
start
3 years
very
old,
young figuring out where men
so
are.
she's the one that's going to have me figured out and know exactly what to do all the time to get me to do what she wants.
And she's very astute, 3
Yes.
years old. I'll be
Yes.
interviewing her in 10 years on investing. So the Courthouse Steps thing is so odd. What's the history behind that? Why do we go stand on the courthouse steps?
No, it actually is interesting. It comes from English common law, and so back in the day in England in the 1600s, if you wanted to buy a piece of property, you would get a noble or a bank to lend you the money, but they wouldn't lend you the money. They would buy the property, they would hold title to it, and then you would pay them.
Right.
And so if you wound up paying off 80% of that property and then missed one payment, that noble or that bank could just take it away from you and then resell it and make a huge profit, right? So they had an incentive to put you into foreclosure. And then when the founding fathers came over to the United States, they said, this is something we're going to change, right? And they said, the person will actually hold title to the property. The bank will just have a security interest or a mortgage or something like that. That way, if the person does get behind on their payments, but they have 50% equity in the property, when the bank sells it, if it does it in a public, transparent sale and should get market value, that owner will actually get the proceeds of over and above their unpaid balance.
And so the most public way to do that would be to go to the town square, the courthouse, and to make sure it was public.
You had to make sure, right? You had to make sure that the bank didn't go do it in their back room to their buddies or
Right.
anything like that. That the fix wasn't in. That you had somewhere where everybody knew the properties that were going to be sold and everybody knew where it was at and what time and what date. And in fact, a lot of the states that still utilize that foreclosure auction, I mean, it is down to it will be every first Tuesday at 10 a.m. At this exact location within 150 feet, of this door.
That's right.
They are very peculiar and very precise about exactly how that works.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Rob, it's so wonderful to talk to you and see
It's
you.
been great to come back and to see everyone. And
You look great, and I know
Thank
you're
you.
doing so well. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'll send you my shopping list from Mumbai and the other
Great.
places you're going, okay?
Great, that's terrific.
And if you like what you learned today, be sure to tune in to Pam Mckissick Without Reserve on KFAQ 1170 AM every Sunday, 4 p.m., beginning in January. So we've been talking about foreclosure trustee sales on the courthouse steps. And in summary, here are the things that I think we need to remember. Number one, are you in a state with redemption? Because if you are, the homeowner has the right to come back in some cases and pay the debt and take the home that you think you've bought at the courthouse steps. Number two, the laws, both federal and state, regarding eviction. If you bought a home that has an occupant in it who does not want to leave, how do you go about doing that? Number 3, what about the value of the property? That's very important. What should you pay for it to begin with? And since you often can't get in because it's occupied, to determine what condition it's in, you have to do your homework regarding the data around the neighborhood and decide what you're going to pay for it, how much you have to put in it, and in turn what your return is going to be. There's a lot of people who make an awful lot of money doing this, but they are smart and dedicated and do their homework. Be one of them. I know you can. And if you enjoyed the show today, why don't you let us know by tweeting me at Auction Network. And if there's a topic I haven't covered that you'd like for me to cover, please contact me at PamMckissick.com. And remember, when it comes to real estate, you can buy it and hold it, or you can let the auctioneer cry, "Sold it!" See you next time.